Okay, we're live.
Thank you. Sorry. I want to follow John Dotson's step by saying thank you to the Arapaho people and thank you to these mountains for welcoming us. And thank you to the weather. For tomorrow it will snow, but today it's beautiful. And for my session, I intend to take you outside. So this is an experiential session. We will be about an hour, a little bit more together, mostly outside. I'll just speak for a short while. So we'll have most of the time to actually do the experiences and then discuss things together, hopefully. I'll also give you a moment to use the restroom on the way. If you want a sweater, you can have it. David just basically focused on the power of story in his presentation, right? How she who controls the metaphors really effectively controls the world. And I think mine is pretty much rooted in that as well. I mean, one of the questions we look at when we're looking at Gebser is really ultimately how do we facilitate the moving into integral consciousness, right? Ultimately. And that includes all of these other forms of consciousness as part of it, rather than privileging just one over the other, and especially in our times, it's privileging the mental rational. So how do we get there? I mean, Jeremy opened the conference by saying participation in the world and awareness. And then Michael said, the emergent integral is dependent on the spiritual as originary and primary. And Hans brought it further by mentioning parts, looking at the parts, yes, but we're really recognizing the itself, the spiritual form of everything that permeates the whole. And the way to get there are through these spiritual practices, deeply recognized spiritual practices like Dzogchen or Zen. These are practices that can lead us to this aperspectival integral consciousness. And I'm here to say, well, beyond that, there's an older practice, older yet, and really available to everybody. And that's just going directly to the more than human world of nature. Mm-hmm. The original teacher. I mean, as Hans pointed out, the word for Zen, the word for emptiness is actually ku, which is sky. The sky is the teacher. The sky is the teacher of big sky mind and that vastness and that expansiveness, the letting go of the individual ego and recognizing something larger. The sky. The mad Taoist monks are classic for doing this, recognizing this original teacher. Han Shan at Cold Mountain, those wonderful poems. And I brought you a couple from Ikkyu here. Let's see. I just randomly opened it up this morning saying, what will I read? These two came, so here you go. A hermit monk in mountains. He was around 1394 born. So he's writing at the turn of the 1400s. I like it best when no one comes, preferring fallen leaves and swirling flowers for company. Just an old Zen monk living like he should. A withered plum tree suddenly sprouting 100 blossoms. And here's another nightingale. Love this one. A bird, too, chants sutras of salvation, filling the trees with marvelous tones. Forest flowers are bodhisattvas, surrounding a little bird Buddha. So he's pointing here to the aliveness of the more than human world. Enlightenment isn't just the province of two-legged human beings. This is a pretty radical concept, right? So I think then about the Buddha, about Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, and how he went to the Bodhi tree, and that's where he achieved enlightenment. He couldn't get it when his regular practice. He went to a tree and he sat at its first and he says, I'm staying here until I wake up. And part of me wonders, we think of a tree as inert, right? Just circumstantial. It was a setting. He just happened to be sitting under a tree. But what if it wasn't, right? What if the tree were a crucial player in his awakening? What if, in fact, it was kind of a darshan with this wise ancient being rooted, tying its roots to other ancient beings and tied into the water? So old, so knowing. What if it was a kind of a darshan with the tree? Well, what if he and the tree actually facilitated waking up together? Nowadays, We look at the world situation Gebser was writing in the Nazi time, and we're looking at it in the collapse of both political and environmental structures, right? The structures of all that support our lives. It's really important, I think, to use all the tools available to us. My field of ecopsychology looks at psychological models to apply them to cultural issues like this. And one idea that comes up is one of collective amnesia. The idea that we as a culture in the industrial growth society have forgotten something that our ancestors knew very, very well. And that's our closeness with the earth. Our ability to empathize and identify with non-human life, and a respect for the mysterious, and a humility in relationship with the infinite complexities of this whole system that we are part of. This is not respected as important in our dominant society, you might notice. Now we look at physical things. There's a Japanese thing called forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, and it will demonstrate the physical good effects you can receive from being around trees. So phytoncide, these little aromatic compounds in the air, if you're breathing those, they're now finding out in medical research that higher amounts of those in the air will increase production of anti-cancer proteins and immune defense cells, like natural killer cells in your body. Just being around trees is physically good for you. And then when we look at the example of the Buddha and so many of these other wise beings from Asia, and by the way, Europe, the Druids also, that was their church. It was groves of trees, not a building. We can see that there's perhaps other benefits for being in partnership with trees and other than humans as well. And then if we take it beyond just what can nature do for me, right? On a larger cultural scale, moving into a more egalitarian, reciprocally respectful, animistic relationship can actually reanimate the world after a narrative that we've inherited for the past few hundred years that everything's dead, right? Dead matter, that's all it is. We can do whatever we want with it because it's just basically dead and their bodies are for our use, which I finally find triple X-rated violence and obscene, honestly. So there's my bias out on the table. Today we're going to have an experience where you can, I hope, I'll be able to facilitate you experiencing the sacred in the immanent. And it should be fun. So anybody who's game, I'm going to stop talking now. And I want to invite you to gather your gear. Someone behind your club. Bring your jacket if you think you'll want it. Bring your water. We're going to go outside now for the next just about an hour. We're going to walk a little way. If you can't walk, talk to me. Maybe we can get. There's a way you can drive close. If you like that. And let's I'll be right here.
Yes. Yeah. Did you? Did you have a good one?
You can. I'll wait right here. Meet, actually, yeah. Folks.
He is excellent. Yes. Attention.